going to take the next question from Gary. We're just going to take a question from Gary Mason, Jim.
Where is Gary?
Premier, over here.
Hi, Gary.
Yesterday in your comments, you mentioned how nasty politics can be at times. And I'm wondering, in this modern era, the modern media era, and blogosphere and stuff like that, do you think that politics in British Columbia has become so nasty that it's going to discourage really good people from getting into the public service?
First, I want to say this. You know, when you get in public life, you take the good and you take the bad. So people will say what they want about the people that are in public life. The challenge is when the things that are said about me are visited on my nephews, my nieces, my sons as they were growing up. That is not good for public life. And we should all know, in Canada, public life is it's a huge gift that we've been given. And it's important for people to be willing to serve. I think that we all have to raise our game. I think everyone's got to recognize. Frankly, it doesn't matter what political party you're from. I don't know. I can think of very, very, very few people, if any, that run for public office thinking they're going to try and do bad things to the province or bad things to the country. And we have to learn how we have discussions about things without personalizing them. You know, you and I could have a complete disagreement on how we can build a better province or a better education system or a better healthcare, a more reliable healthcare system. And it doesn't mean you're a bad person because you disagree with me. And I think we do have to learn as Canadians that people that decide to serve are trying to serve to do what's good for their city, their town, their region, their province, and their country. And I can tell you one of the things that I will definitely do as I move into the next stage of my life is I will constantly try to remind Canadians of how lucky we are to have an open, democratic society and how important it is that our discussion be civil, how important it is that our discussion treat people with respect, regardless of their ideas. And I think we all lose when people do say, there is no way I would ever put myself up forward for public office because of the commentary that takes place, because of the things that people say. And it's reckless and it's irresponsible. And unfortunately, one of the things that happens is when people have an idea that they say, you know, this is different, and they decide they can't have a discussion with you on the merits, they say, I've got a good idea. Let's attack the person. You know, what we want to do is build, I think, a province and a country that recognizes our incredible strengths and lifts all Canadians up together and has open, honest, direct public discourse. I think that everyone benefits from that.
Go ahead, Jim.
The success of your party that the next leader come from outside the current Liberal Party?
How
important is it for the success of your party that the next leader come from the outside?
I think the importance of success of this party is to remember that we're a party that believes in free enterprise, that believes in building the economy as we move ahead, that believes in bringing people into the system, that believes in looking at the facts in the face and doing the best they can on the basis of the facts that are in front of them. I think if any party or tries to actually proceed on the basis of what's expedient or what seems popular this week or next week, they're not actually standing for what's important, and that's what's in the best interest of the province in the long term.
We're going to take the next question from Jim.
A policy question, but upon hearing your previous answer about your family and the personal attacks, I'm wondering, when you went home last night, ready for bed, you'd made the biggest political decision of your career. What were you thinking? Was it a sense of relief, or was it a sense of the job's not done yet? How were you feeling? What were you thinking?
Well, first, let me say the biggest political decision of my career was to decide to run for office. And a lot of things flow from when you decide to run for office and you get the opportunity to serve and you see the opportunities in front of us. Sometimes it's very difficult to explain to people how lucky we are to be in British Columbia when you're the premier or you're an elected representative. There's no place in North America that's as well positioned to move forward as British Columbia is in the next 10 years. And I think that the people of this province will carry this province forward, and that will help carry the country forward. Having said that, you know, there's a sense of relief. You know, this part of there's a sense of, you know, we've got things still to do, but you know, there's a whole new world that's opening up. You know, I think sometimes people don't understand how much time and energy it takes to do a job like this from an MLA or a mayor or a city councillor. So yeah, I think it's going to be exciting. I was relieved. Nicholas was there. My two grandsons were there. Laura was there. Nancy was there. So we had a great night. It was fun.
We're going to take the next question from Jazz Johal. We're going to take the next question from Jazz Johal over here. Thanks.
Premier Campbell, Dr. McGinty also introduced the HST.
Yeah.
Obviously, his numbers aren't as low as yours. What did he do differently? I mean, there was certainly a wider range of exemptions, certainly. What would you have done differently? What lesson has been learned from this particular message? You're saying it's better for British Columbia introducing the HST.
Yeah.
Dalton McGuinty's doing better there. Tell me what you think, what you would have done differently now.
Well, I think, as I've tried to talk about this in the last few weeks, I think, first of all, people did feel and were led to believe that we had this on our agenda before the election and we just tried to hide it from them. That is not the case. And I think we should have done, number one, a much better job of explaining that and why it was that we were able to do things as quickly as we could. The only reason we were able to, frankly, was because Dalton McGuinty and Ontario were negotiating with the federal government. And in June, we were told, you don't have to go through all that. You can have the same deal for British Columbia if you decide you want to take it. So that was the first thing. I think that was a mistake on my part. I can recall being told the government can't make a decision that quickly, and I didn't hear the question the way I should have heard it. And I think the real question was, how is this even possible for it to happen? And I should have answered it much better, and I didn't. I think the other thing is, I've said time and again, Jazz, that we should have been far more aggressive as we made that decision about explaining why the decision was there, about showing why we thought it made a difference for people in their lives. We made the decision. We came out of the budget in August. We got into the Olympic, the Olympic sort of run up to the Olympic Games, and it sort of hit us again in early March of 2010. So we did not do a good job. I've apologized to people for that because I think that is my responsibility, and we didn't do a good job with it, and it was a mistake.
We're going to take the next
I'm
question.
having trouble reconciling your comment that you're not concerned about popularity, but you had the support of caucus, but you're leaving for the good of the province. If it wasn't for if it isn't just a lack of support, how is this good for the province? Isn't this really about what's good for the party and its chances in the next election?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think that really what this is about is trying to focus your attention and everyone else's attention on what the steps are the government should take that will help us rebound from the economic downturn, that will help us improve our education system, that will help us sustain our healthcare system. If every step we take is about whether the premier is popular or not, and that's what people are talking about. Was one person popular? Is one person this, that, or the next thing? Government is about all of government. It's about the whole caucus working on behalf of British Columbians. And I think that this is going to be in the best interest of British Columbians. People will, instead of thinking about what's in the best interest or whether Gordon Campbell's doing this for his reasons or not, they can think about whether this is being done for the province, for the best interest of the province. And I think that's critical. I don't know what else to say other than that. I think it's really an important part of how we can move this province forward and take advantage of the opportunities that lie before us.
We just have time for a couple more. We're going to take one from Ken McQueen, okay?
Premier,
Hi, Ken.
how much room does a new leader have to maneuver? You've instituted a referendum on the HST and a $2 billion income tax cut. Doesn't that hamstring a leader?
Well, I think that if all of that just came out of the blue, that would be one thing. But the fact is, these were decisions that we made as a government, as a cabinet, as a caucus. These are decisions that we have confidence in for British Columbians. I think British Columbians were clear. They wanted to have a referendum. We said, yes, you'll have a referendum. We've been clear that we will be guided by the majority of the vote of the people that show up and decide to pass their decision with regard to the HST. The personal income tax cut is something this party has always believed in. The reason people have substantially more take-home pay in their pockets today than before we were elected is because we've always thought that if we can give more people more opportunities to make their own choices, that will be better for them and it will be better for the economy. So I think this is actually a continuation of the policies we put in place. I think that the new leader, certainly if they're from inside government, will have been part of those decisions. And if they're from outside government, I would assume they'll be running for a party that they believe in strengthening the private sector economy. I think they'll believe in leaving more money in people's pockets. That's what the party's always stood for. And frankly, it's a continuation of that.
We're going to take one last question. It'll be the last question from Jim Beattie.
You've always been a very activist premier, busy agenda, busy travel schedule. How do you envision the next number of months? Will you be more of a caretaker premier, number one? And will all the initiatives that you've set in place, do you expect all of those will continue, or will we see sort of a pullback on some of those things?
No, we've launched a pretty aggressive program for the spring legislative agenda. We have, again, the largest personal income tax, second largest personal income tax cut that we've had. We've still got a budget to go through. We still have initiatives with regard to early childhood learning and development that we're going to do. We've launched major initiatives to try and make sure we have a sustainable healthcare system in the long term. I'll be premier until that time. I'm not expecting to launch a whole series of new initiatives. I don't think that would be what's important, but we've got enough initiatives on the table to fill up our time in the next 4 months, 5 months.
Thanks very much, everybody. Thank you. Thanks very much.
It's great to see all of you guys. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Great to have you here.
So there you have it. Premier Gordon Campbell holding a news conference this morning, a day after announcing that he is leaving as Premier. We've been listening to that along with you and also Keith Baldry, who joins us from Victoria. And Keith, early on he said polls obviously were not my friend, but he mentioned many times that the province needed to get back to what was important and that this wasn't about me, it's about the issues. And I don't think you'd expect anything else for him to say today.
No, not a lot of real surprises there. I thought, guys, he was relaxed. I think he sort of communicated the fact that he was a little disappointed. I detected some disappointment there that he wasn't able to continue a little longer than he ultimately was able to. But we talked about before that you weren't going to get much out of him in terms of acknowledging something that he hadn't acknowledged before, and that was true the case again today. So he talked about, one thing I found odd is that he talked about commentary after the speech being about focusing on his personal popularity. Well, that's been the case for a period of months. So I don't think he still explained what was the magic tipping point here that prompted him to suddenly resign in such short time after that speech. Because the commentary, if he's referring to that as a reason, hasn't really changed much for a period of months now. So I don't know if that was adequately explained. I found it interesting how many times he mentioned his grandkids and his family. I think that was the real reason here that probably pushed him into a decision. He also denied any problems with the caucus, which I think is a bit disingenuous because I think there is evidence that the caucus was increasingly unhappy. So he doesn't really give in to a lot of theories, and he certainly wasn't giving in to any today, but he seemed to be in pretty good spirits, and I think it'll be interesting to see the last point. He still is Premier until a new leader is chosen, and that last question about how activist are you going to be as Premier. Gordon Campbell is known as running a one-man show here in the building behind me, and it's going to be hard to do that as a lame duck Premier, but he may still intend to run a one-man show, and it's going to be interesting to see how he performs on that stage in the weeks and months ahead.
The next chapter in the always dramatic story of BC politics,
No kidding.
All right, thanks very much for joining us, Keith, and we'll let you get back to work and see what you have for us at noon today. We'll have, of course, much more for you on Premier Gordon Campbell's resignation and, of course, that news conference you just saw. Thanks for joining us. We return you now to regular programming.